Richard. Thank you, Eric. So that was our keynote presentation. Next, we are going to be going to lunch, but let's give one more round of applause before we head to lunch.
Questions for Eric?
Yes, questions for Eric and Richard.
Need, right? I'll just say need. My wife made me do it. I spent 8 years in the USDA, and I'm not really corporate minded, I guess. So my stint at General Mills was a great education series. I just talked to Bill Miller, the head IP attorney, on Monday on the way here. He said, "Hey, I'm putting on my 25-2 shirt, and I'm thinking of you." And I said, "You know, Bill," I said, I've had the privilege to work with other IP attorneys through Vendara too, and they were very gracious. They said, "You know, you provide us a lot of information that we needed, and we were able to execute some of the IP terms that we're doing very quickly." And I just told Bill, I said, "You know, Bill, I just appreciate you and your team for teaching me over the last 5 years." And he said, "Eric," he said, "you were one guy that every time you came with a notebook, and you took a lot of notes." And he said, "I told my whole legal team that Eric is studying us, and he's not going to be here for a long time." And you know, the reality was, the part of the story I didn't tell that I think is warranted to tell you guys is the high protein oat story. It consumed me, and it made me somebody I didn't like. Because as I got to the latter part of General Mills, I started latching onto it like it was mine, and it actually was a really interesting thing for me because I started getting really angry with a lot of people I worked with. And it wasn't a good thing. And so I came home one day and I was venting to Kim, like I would vent all the time. And I didn't even realize I was venting. I was just mad. And I don't think she remembers saying this, or maybe she didn't say it, maybe it's what I heard her say, but she said, "Do you even like yourself?" And I was like, man, that whole weekend I just introspectively just started looking at myself. And I realized that I don't like myself anymore. The beast had consumed me, right? And I just wanted to get away from it. And I wanted to go back to my own grassroots, right? And I wanted to be able to fail and not be concerned with failure. I wanted to be able to do things for the pure notions of why I wanted to do it, and then have people that I surrounded myself with that would be honest with me. And I felt, although corporate America does a lot of beautiful and wonderful things, it's really hard in corporate America to be honest with people. And so I just didn't want that culture anymore. And you're not going to change the world without culture, right? And so, seriously, I really envy you guys as professors because that culture gets taken away a lot of times with tenure, but I would also argue, I am sure those same pressures exist even in academia, but the reality is, you know, our goal is different, right? Kim and I will tell you, you can look at our books, we don't care to make a lot of money, and a lot of people ask us the question all the time, your business model must suck. And I'm just like, maybe it does, but you know, I always return with whatever happened to Little House on the Prairie. And they say, what does that mean? And I'm like, well, you know, Charles used to maybe grow stuff with his horse and turn his flour in, and then the blacksmith would make a new horseshoe. I'm okay with that, right? Like, I've got everything I need. And so it's kind of an evolving world, serious. Like, and I'm finding, like, everybody that comes out of the PEP project, we'll tell them that right off the bat, and they're just like all in. Like, and Richard, how long was it? You came to work for us, and you were in Morocco like
about a month after.
And so maybe that world works, maybe it doesn't, maybe we won't be around in 3 years, but I'd do it again. But it's really because of that reason, serious. No other reason. It's fun, I'll tell you that. I enjoy every day. So there's another question. Back. Yeah.
Eric, so we have a lot of academics here, and you have a lot of humanitarian efforts going on. So I'm going to assume that you'd be really up for or open to anything where maybe if we saw a grant mechanism where we needed industry partners, that you'd be willing to step in to be a supporter for something along those lines.
Absolutely.
For example, even the drone technology, where DARPA has a lot of interest in that world. You have a 3D printed drone that I could see, like, out in a field, you could have the capabilities to build the drone in a remote area
Yep.
on the need, on the fly, for whatever purposes.
Replace
So,
parts.
yeah, I was just curious if you'd be all for something along those lines. So.
Yeah, and Rob, I would say also, that's why I was asking, I asked like Rob, and David's not here, but he's of Crop Search, and Jade and Rusty. That's why I asked them to come too, because it's really, I wanted them to see what you guys have here, but at the same time, they share the same vision, right? Like the other thing serious is we get to work with people that we choose to work with, and I've said no to people, like people that want to like work with us. I've just said, no, I'm not going to work with you. And we've been able to choose the people we work with. That's also something else, and we have like-minded aspirations. And so I would say even as we go forward, there's other people here too with Vendara and Crop Search who are also equally interested in the things you're talking about. So yeah, for sure. Like I think, and I also, we work with Context Global Development. They help us with our philanthropy, the work we're doing. And I don't even want to call it philanthropy anymore. I want to call it the future, Rob. Because when I was riding in a car between the Phosphate Flats and the Upper Atlas Mountains with Sakina, who was one of WAFA's students, and now she has her own business, I was telling her the story of how hard it was for me to get somebody to grow the high-protein oat as a farmer. My uncle, I asked my uncle in Minnesota to grow the high-protein oat for seed, and he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it because he was under contract to grow corn and soy. If he got out of that contract, it could ruin his business. See, he had no need, right? And I told Sakina that story, and she said, Eric, we have need. That means we'll do it. So I look at that and say they're the future, right? And they're super smart, right? And they're super motivated. Like Tayem from Senegal, he's just waiting for opportunities, right? He'll change the world, right? And that's what I think is cool about how do we partner with them now in such a way that we can stand side by side and change the world on our terms, right? Not on Pioneer's terms. And not that Pioneer's bad, but like their motivations have to be a little bit different. So yeah, I would love, we haven't explored that yet, but Kim will tell you, I'd give you our money to do it. Like for sure. So another, actually the one over here too.
So thank you. We all know that, we hear a lot that starting a company is hard. Startups especially, there's lots that fail. What was your biggest perceived hurdle in starting up a new company, and how did you get over it?
Maybe I should let Kim answer.
It's probably a good idea. Yeah, that's probably a good
I don't
idea.
see any hurdles, right? She sees
Okay.
them all, right?
Yeah.
Like she's always seeing what would you say is our number one hurdle that you worried about? You would be better to answer that question than I would, I think.
I mean, for us, just not bringing on too many people too fast, right? I mean, it's just financial, right? Just balancing that as it's a plane taking off is how many people can you put on that plane? And so it was just Eric and I, it wasn't scary because it's just our family if it goes bad. So he'll, sell our house and go find a job somewhere else. So, but it is scary bringing on other families. And so, but I feel like we're kind of over that's a little bit over that. But just the first year was just like, okay, a balancing act of scaling as you get more business. You have to have more people. So,
Finding out if you're actually valuable. We weren't prideful in that. We just never assumed we were valuable. Like the whole story I told you was a really cool story, but it had a lot of players. And I didn't overinflate. I get to tell the story because I was the spectator of most of the story, right? But there was a lot of super cool people that made that happen, right? And you don't even know your value, right? That's scary. Like Kim was saying, as we bring more and more people on, we become more valuable because like Jamie's really cool and valuable, and Richard's valuable, and Scott's valuable, and there's a lot of valuable people now. So I'm feeling like we're valuable, and that was the scary part. But yeah, it's really scary when you have other people. It's not simple, right?
Hi, my question will be continue on that. What would be your advice for people who are here on this campus? Probably for these last 8 years, I think that's the 7th symposium. That so many companies came and left, or so many collaborations change. What would be your advice for these new settings in terms of future, in terms of like companies, how we maintain or how we stimulate the students to stay here or to stay local if we could not really promote the job security here in this area?
Yeah, I mean, I think the number one thing is just finding your purpose, right? Like, that's the bottom line, right? Like, a unified purpose is something it changes everything, right? Like, it's the one thing that makes everything happen, right? And I guess I think when I like to watch sci-fi films, like sci-fi shows, like, okay, I'm a geek, right? Whatever you want to call them. My kids will tell you that. But I constantly struggle with this, and Stargate Atlantis is one of the shows we watch with our kids. And what I found fascinating about that is you've got like the really smart Canadian physicist and Rodney McKay, and you've got the macho like military leader, and then you've got the really strong person, and you got the really strong girl, and what I noticed about that is their structure. They're like a family because they're always fighting a unified purpose. Right? And it doesn't matter who's leading and who's in front and who's in the back. It doesn't matter who's being scared or who's hurt or whatever. They all start to pick up the slack for each other. And I think I made this comment. I go to all these tech facilities and these tech startup, these incubators and campuses like this. And I look around and I ask myself the question, what's the unified purpose? Because if there's no unified purpose, there'll never be like something special that everybody's looking for. Yeah. So I really applaud the PEP project. That's why the PEP project to me is so important, because it provides an opportunity for a unified purpose, right?
Hello, great talk. I'm going to ask a question that's probably the least philosophical or technical. If I understand correctly, the name of your company is 25.2. What's the meaning of that?
Yeah. So you just have a cool numeric name, and everybody wants to know what it's about, right? Yeah. So when we started the company, simply on our webpage, we believe that there are hidden things in the world, and if we seek them out, pure motives will find them. And that comes from the biblical proverb 25:2. And when we did the high protein oat story, one of our partners said, "Hey, that you exemplify that." And that is that, it simply states that it's to the glory of, this glory of God to conceal a matter and glory of kings to seek it out. And, that's the foundation of that, and that's who we are. We are a scientific company, but that's at the root of what we believe. And so you look at the high protein oat story, it was in nature. It was there. We sought it out with everything we have. We are bent on... At our company, we are bent on creating the latest technology and tools with the greatest minds to do that, to focus it on that alone, right? To seek out things that are here and try to bring them to the world, right? With pure motives, right? That's the angle. That's it. So that's what 25.2 stands for. And we're really excited about how quickly it's coming together. And I really think it's because we all have pure motives. Right. And one of the things that I'll tell you about that is I didn't get a chance to say this. I put Buzz Lightyear on the board. But Creativity Inc., I would encourage everybody in this room, and I know Jade's laughing over there and Rob's laughing because I told her, you need to read that book. Right? It's the story of Pixar Disney, and you should read that book. Ed Cantemel built the Pixar machine. They released Toy Story. And the thing that happened to him after that is in that book, and he went through a serious time of depression. And what he tells is his resurgence from that depression was all bent around finding the fears of the super talented people that worked at Pixar and finding the things that brought trouble and angst between the individuals that work there and weeding those things out. And that's what he said. That's all him and John Lasseter do today, is they just surround themselves with all these people, find their fears, find the things that are causing turmoil between them, what I call the impurities, and go after them and eliminate them as fast as possible. And so that's that. Pure motives are really hard to stay with, right, because we're human beings. I'm probably some of the worst at that. But if we can kind of do that with the talented individuals we have, then, yeah, I think it'd be great. And to keep this thing going strong, I would be like, I hope we keep growing so we keep hiring all the students out of here, right? So hopefully that answers your question. extinguish all the questions.
Any other questions? All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.